So the next section is going to be about quadratic equations and problem solving, and they have some couple reminders of different formulas you might use. The first one is the area of a rectangle. It's base times height or length times width. This is one that you're going to use pretty frequently in this section, okay? The area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. We're going to do it on here, and we're probably going to have one on our worksheet, but that's not as common, so you probably wouldn't see that on a quiz. The perimeter of any shape is just add up all the sides. No matter what shape it is, just add up all the sides. And then, of course, this theorem, guys, I know, like, Randy, you had Math 111 with me. We've seen Pythagorean theorems since Math 111. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So that's just when you have that triangle and the two legs, a plus b, and then c is the hypotenuse there. Okay? And that's something, like, if you're going on to college algebra or calculus or wherever you're going after this, you still see the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so let's look at this first equation here, what's going on. It says an object is dropped from the roof of a 144-foot tall building. Neglecting air resistance, the height, h, and feet, so that just lets you know what that variable h stands for. It's the height of the object above the ground after t seconds. Again, that's just letting you know what the variable t stands for, is the time. It's given by the equation h equals -16t squared plus 144. Find how long it takes the object to hit the ground. So they actually didn't have us make the equation. They gave the equation right off the bat. So remember, h is the height. I'm just going to label all this stuff. T is the time. And guys, this just happens to be one where there's only 2 terms, but you could get a 3-term, a trinomial, and have to use the AC method to factor it. Whenever you're given this equation in this class, you're given either the h for height that you plug in, or the t for time. So let's see what they gave us. It says find how long. So what is it asking us to find? The time, right? It's asking us to find the time. So it's asking us to find t. So somewhere in here it told us the height, but it's kind of hidden, okay? It says find how long it takes the object to hit the ground. Well, how high off the ground are you if you're hitting the ground? How many feet? H would be what? Well, that's actually where you start. So 144 is where you're starting, and we're going to throw this object, say it's a penny, off the top of that 144-foot building. I want to know how long it takes to hit the ground. So I'm going to throw it, and it's going to fall, and then it's going to hit the ground. When it hits the ground, how high off the ground is it? Kind of a trick question. 0, right? This function here just tells you how high it is at any point. So I can say, oh, I threw this penny, and it's been in the air for a second. And you can plug one in, do the math, and you say, oh, that is 128 feet off the ground, you know, or it's been in the air for 3 seconds, and you can plug it in. But we already know it's hitting the ground, so the height is 0. Is every single one the height 0? No. It might say find how long it takes for the object to hit the height of 32 or something like that, and you'd put 32 in for h. But whenever you're hitting the ground, your height is 0. So it's kind of like our x-intercept problems where we're going to take this function. You guys like to flip it, so we can flip that. -6t squared plus 144 equals 0. We're plugging h equals 0 in. I just flipped the order because I know a lot of you just like that 0 at the end. At this point, guys, this is an equation you could have seen and solved on Wednesday. What's the #1 rule in factoring? Look for a GCF. Whatever I do is I start with the biggest number, or excuse me, the smallest number, so 16. See if 16 goes into 144. If not, try the next biggest factor, 16, 8. If not, try 4. If not, try 2. How many times did it say? 9? Okay. So I'm going to take out a -16. I can't take out a t because the 144 doesn't have a t, okay? So negative divided by a negative is a positive, t squared. And then 144 divided by a negative is a negative, and you said that was 9 equals 0. All right. So once you take out a GCF, it should already be factored, or you should know how to factor this. What is this special instance, guys? This is called the difference of squares. So this is something that we're going to have to recognize on the quiz. How do you factor t squared minus 9? T plus 3, t minus 3. Remember when you have the difference of squares, the AC method does not work. So it's that special formula where you take the square root of the first. So what's the square root of t squared? T. And you take the square root of the second. What's the square root of 9? 3. And you say, what do I need in order for that middle term to disappear? Opposite sides. Alright, at that point we're going to set each factor equal to 0. Negative 16, t plus 3, and t minus 3 equal to 0. I'm getting a little cramped, I'm sorry. Can negative 16 equal 0? No. Can t plus 3 equal 0? It sure can. Move that over and you get negative 3. And then t minus 3 equals 0. Move that over and you get positive 3. So, on most problems, when they ask you to solve, you'll have two answers. But on word problems, you usually only have one answer because it's talking about time. So if t is time, can time be negative 3 seconds? No, I don't know what that means. Is that going back in time? So since this is negative, 3 seconds is our answer. It can't be negative. So we answer the question. This penny or this object, whatever we're doing, throwing off of that 144-foot building, it's in the air for 3 seconds before it hits the ground. So we could count 1, 2, 3, and it's hit the ground. Okay? These are not bad because they do give you the function. Alright? Do they always have to be these two binomials where it's always going to be a difference of squares? No. It might be a trinomial where you have to use the AC method, but ultimately you'll always get a positive answer and a negative answer most of the time, and so that positive answer will be your winner. Alright, let's look at the next one. It says the square of a number plus 3 times the number is 70. Find that number. Do we know what the number is? No, so I'm going to call it x. X is the number. So I'm making my little key up there. Does it have to be x? No, it can be A, B, C, cat face, I don't care. Some kind of variable to show that we don't know it, alright? X is usually the easiest. The second you try to pick a fancy letter, I feel like it gets more confusing, okay? So let's start with this math sentence here. The square of a number. Well, we don't know what that number is, but we want the square of it, okay? How do you show something squared? 2. Not 2, but like the exponent 2, right? A little 2. So what is the number? X, and here is its square. So how do we show the square of a number? Here's the number squared. Plus, so then what operation are we doing? Plus, right? Adding. 3 times the number. How do you show 3 times the number? 3x, right? Here's 3 times the number. I don't know the number, but 3 times is just shove them right next to each other. Guys, in English, when you see the word is, it always is the equal sign in math, alright? So worst case scenario, find that is, put an equal sign on there, and try to do either the left side or the right side. What is it? It is 70. So we got it. The square of a number plus 3 times the number is 70. At this point, they've given you an equation that is just like Wednesday. What's Wednesday's rules? Move everything to one side, set equal to 0. If it's factored, go ahead and solve. If it's not factor, factor. So what's the first move we need to make on this equation in order to solve? Move the 70 over, right? I want it equal to 0. Since my 70 is positive, I'm going to subtract him over. And since he's the constant, he's going to go in the back, okay? So this is going to be x squared plus 3x minus 70 equals 0. Now it's equal to 0. Ask yourself, is it factored? No. How do you factor a trinomial? You do the AC method, right? Where your A is 1, your C is negative 7, so negative 70. So your AC is negative 70. So factors of negative 70 that add up to 3. Okay? And this is where you can take your time, you can do the chart 1 and 70, 2 and 35, 3 and whatever, and so forth. And you keep going systematically, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you eventually get to 7. 7 and 10 multiply to be 70. But if you have a positive 10 and a negative 7, you add up to 3, okay? So again, I'm going to skip that part, so at this point, it's just something that you need to know how to do. We want to focus on the new stuff, right? So this is x squared plus 10x minus 7x minus 70 equals 0. And again, I'm just doing that little multiply to negative 70, add to 3, if you need to do that chart over there. So you go 1, 2, 3, you get all the way down to 7. All right. Factor out an x, so you get x plus 10 left. Remember, we want an x plus 10 on the second half, so what do we need to factor out of the second half? A 7. And not only a 7, but a negative 7, because I want to flip my signs, right? I want both of my signs to be positive, so I'm going to take out a negative 7. When I take out a negative 7, the negative divided by negative leaves you a positive, the negative divided by negative leaves you with a positive. So your final factored form ends up being x plus 10, x minus 7 equals 0. And again, I know I'm going quick on that AC method part, but that's something that we learned day 1 or week 1. So we just need to be feeling comfortable with that. If you're still not 100%, we can work on it outside of class, but for purposes of this. So what are your two potential values for x? 7 and negative 10. And guess what? It can be either or. If they said the square of a positive number plus 3 times that number is 70. So if they focus on the positive, you would just write the 7. If they said the negative, you write the negative 10. But believe it or not, if you do either one and plug them in, you'll get it. So 7 squared is 49, 3 times 7 is 21, 49 plus 21 gets you 70. Negative 10 squared is 100, but 3 times negative 10 is negative 30. 100 minus 30 is 70. So either one actually equals that 70. Phew. All right. The next one, like I said, this one I think is like the more common one you see in this class and in your future math classes, where it's area of a rectangle, okay? It says the length of a rectangle is 1 yard less than twice its width. The area of the rectangle is 36 square yards. Find the dimensions of the rectangle. So there's a lot going on. The first thing I do is I just draw the rectangle over here. Let's just get a picture of what the heck is going on. We don't know the length or the width. It says the length of a rectangle is 1 yard less than twice its width. But notice if we knew its width, we could figure out its length, right? We take 1 yard less than twice it. So since it's talking about the length in terms of the width will be my variable. So I'm going to make that x. If you want to make it w, you can. That's fine. I don't like using like w and l because my l kind of looks like a 1, and so I use x. All right. So how can we write the length in terms of it? Well, what's twice its width if the width is x? How do we show twice x? X squared. Not x squared because it's squared. Say my 2x. You have the right idea. So if we want the square, but we just want 2x. And then how do we show 1 yard less than that? Minus 1. Okay? The 1 yard less or the 1 yard more, always put it in the back. Even though they said it first, right? They said the length of a rectangle is 1 yard less than twice its width. Well, if you're 1 year younger than me, you would take my age, subtract 1. So that 1 yard less is always in the back. So even though we don't know the width or the length, we have them kind of written in expressions, okay? The one last little bit we haven't used is the area. We know the area is 36 yards. So what are we dealing with? The area of a rectangle. Way up here, it told us the area of a rectangle was length times width. So let's write that. A equals length times width. A equals length times width. And believe it or not, we have something to plug in for A, we have something to plug in for L, and we have something to plug in for W. A stands for the area. What did they say the area was? 36, right? So we can put 36 over here equals the length. Do we know what the length is? No, but we have an expression for the length. What's the expression for the length? 2x minus 1. I'm going to put that in parentheses to show that it goes together. Times the width. Do we know the width? No, but we have an expression for the width. It is just x. At this point, you're like, Molly, that doesn't really look like a quadratic to me. Well, it is. It's just one where you have to distribute the x, move the 36 over, and so forth. So the first move I'm going to make, guys, is distribute this x through. And as I do that, I'm going to move the 36 over, if that's okay, to just kind of save space. So I'm going to have 0 equals 2x squared minus 1x minus 36. Does everybody see where all those numbers came from? The 0, because I moved the 36 back over here. Since he was positive, I subtracted him. The 2x times x gives me a 2x squared, and the 1 times x gives me that 1x. So we have 2x squared minus 1x minus 36. What did we learn on Wednesday? That if we have a quadratic set equal to 0, as long as we can factor it, we can set each of the factors equal to 0. So the first move in factoring is to look for a GCF, but since we have that 1 in the middle, there's no GCF. So we're going to do the AC method, where 2 times negative 36 is negative 72. Whenever it's negative, guys, think of two factors that just differ by whatever your middle is, right? So what are two factors of 72 that just differ by 1? Negative 9 and positive 8, right? And you knew that 9 was negative because the middle was negative and the bigger factor. But if you don't do that, do 1 and 72, 2 and 36, 3 and 18, or what, you know, whatever. I don't think it's 3 and 18, 3 and 24. All right, so I'm going to write this as 0 equals 2x squared minus 9x plus 8x minus 36. Do you have to write it in that order? No. If you want to switch it to the zeros in the back, that's fine as well. So you can write this as 2x squared minus 9x plus 8x minus 36 equals 0. You look at the first two, they can't take out any common number, but they can take out an x. So your numbers are going to stay the same, so it leaves us with a 2x minus 9. And then on the back half, realize like 8 and 36 are kind of weird numbers. Like what can you take out of it? Well, remember this is your hint. What do you need to take out of an 8 so that a 2 is left? 8 divided by what gets you 2? A 4. And 36 divided by 4 will get you that 9. The signs are already as we like them, so we're just going to take out a positive 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. The x stays there. Negative 36 divided by 4 is a negative 9, and that's exactly what we wanted, right? So your final factor form, guys, is that common factor that they share, 2x minus 9 times x plus 4. And I know I'm kind of running out of room here. We do all of this, and we still have not come up with the answer. The answer said find the dimensions of the rectangle. So what we need to do is we need to find x, because that will be the width of the rectangle, and then we can plug it in here to figure out the length. So, when you set these equal to 0, I'm kind of skipping a step just because I don't have a whole lot of room. When you set these equal to 0, you get 9/2 and negative 4. Is that okay, guys? Because you would move the 9 over by adding, and then you would divide by 2. You would move the 4 over by subtracting, and that would be it. So realize these aren't your two answers. This isn't your length and this isn't your width. These are both potential answers for x, your width. But can a width be negative? Again, I don't know what that means. Is it an inverted rectangle? No. Okay? So width can't be negative. So our width, guys, is simply x equals 9/2, and our unit was yards. So our width is 9/2 yards. I know that looks weird, but if you put that in your calculator, guys, that's just 4.5 yards. Okay, so it's not too weird. How do we find our length, though? Well, what did we set up in the very beginning over here? Like, look at your picture. It's 2x minus 1. I said, if we know our width, we can just double it and subtract 1. So right here, I'm going to do 2x minus 1, or 2 times 9/2 minus 1. You guys see what I did? I just stole the expression for length, 2x minus 1, and then I put in my x. And I'll just put in my calculator exactly like that. 2 parentheses, 9 divided by 2 parentheses minus 1. Try it on your calculator. 2 parentheses, 9 divided by 2 parentheses minus 1. And you should get like a reasonable answer. 8. So what's that mean the length is? 8 yards. So the rectangle is 4.5 yards wide and 8 yards long. So kind of keep that in mind, because a lot of times you'll get excited that you got two answers and you think both of those answers are what you plug in. No, you're usually only solving for one answer. So like these, you should only usually be picking one, and then you have to plug it back in to solve for that second one. Okay. So those are our two answers. So what we could do is we could take 9/2 times 8, and we should get 36. Kind of neat how that works out. All right, this one I think is my least favorite. You know, I'm a math teacher and I love all problems, but I think this one's my least favorite, and I think you'll see why. Guys, there's a lot of steps, so what we're going to do is we're going to write small, and we're going to start pretty far off to the left, because there's a lot of steps going on. I know, right? It's not good when your teacher announces that.
So, this is going to be on, no, not this quiz.
Not this quiz, no. Right. So all your quizzes are comprehensive, but they don't entail what you learned the day before. So since our quiz is on Wednesday, this won't be on Wednesday stuff. Okay.
So are most of our quiz going to be on Wednesdays and Mondays?
I don't know. I mean, do you guys kind of like that? Well, yeah, I think so too. We might just shift it. We might just shift that, and then that way, we're kind of always just leaving with the quiz, and you kind of can go with the weekend, just work on your homework, that kind of thing. So we can do that. I'll make sure to announce that when like the whole class is here. All right. The perimeter of a rectangle is 28 meters. Remember, perimeter just is adding all the sides. And the area of the rectangle is 24 square meters. The area is length times width. Find the dimension. So over here, I'm going to draw my little rectangle again. This one I am going to use W and L just because you'll see why in a second. Okay, so my width is usually shorter, so I'll put a W there. And then my L is my length. Alright, why is this tricky? Because instead of giving us like information about one of the sides, all they did was give us information about the perimeter and the area. So we know what area is. Area is length times width. But basically that's all we have right now, L and W. That doesn't really help us. We don't want two variables, L and W. So hopefully we can figure this out. How do you find the perimeter of a rectangle? Well, we would just add up all the sides, right? So when you add up all the sides, you'd have L plus W, L plus W, right? So you'd have two W's and two L's. So your perimeter is just two L's plus two W's. Does everybody agree with that? That's something that I probably would not put this one on the quiz. Like, there's just a lot going on, a lot of formulas you have to memorize. Okay? But again, how would we get that? Remember, perimeter, you just add up all the sides. So we'd have two lengths that we would have added. So L plus L is 2L, and we would have had two widths. All right. So this is something, those that came straight from Math 112 here, I know some of you guys did, where it was called the substitution rule, meaning we have two equations with two unknowns, and one way to solve it is to isolate one of the variables and plug it in for the next. But before we do that, we have something we can plug in. We know our area. What was our area? 24. And we know our perimeter. What was our perimeter? 28. So all I've done so far is just plug in the two numbers they actually gave me, the area and the perimeter. All right, so this one's actually, even though there's more going on, it's actually easier to solve, because whenever you have multiplication, to undo multiplication you have to divide, and then you're left with fractions and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for my L, okay? Act like L is your X that you're trying to solve. So what's the first move you're going to do? You're going to subtract 2W over. So you have 28 minus 2W equals 2L. I feel like it's blurry. I don't feel like I ever focused it today. I don't feel like that did anything.
Yeah, that made it work.
I know. It got good for a second. Huh. Alright. We still want to get L by itself, but who's in its way? The 2. How do you undo multiplication? Divide. So we're just going to divide everything by 2. So you have 14 minus W equals L. You say, well, what's the point of this? We now have L in terms of our width, just like we did up here. Remember, we had our length in terms of our X, 2X minus 1. Well, we now have our length in terms of W, 14 minus W. So guess what I can plug in for L over here? 14 minus W. Okay? So over where we have the area, we're going to have 24 equals our length, which is 14 minus W, times our width, which is W. what was our next, so at this point, guys, is basically what we did up here. This one I could potentially put on a quiz, okay? It's not too crazy. But this one, we're just now getting to what this one was, where we need to distribute the W through, okay? So we're going to distribute the W through. So we'll have 24 equals 14W minus W squared. And at that point, guys, I'm going to get everything to one side equal to 0. And I know it's moving more items, but I like my W squared to be positive. So I'm actually going to move both the 14W and the W squared over to the left and leave the 28 where he is. So since he's negative, I'm going to add him over, W squared. Since he's positive, I'm going to subtract him over, minus 14W. And since 24 didn't move and he was positive, he stays a positive 24. I'm running out of room. So, I'm going to do a little, like, fairy godmother, like, here's my wand and I'm waving it. Can I just tell you what it factors to? Factors of 24 that add up to negative 14 are negative 12 and a negative 2. And you would do factor by grouping, okay? So I'll just say, use the AC method because I'm running out of room and time. We'll put W minus 12, W minus 2 equals 0. So I just made a little note over here that we used our AC method to do that. So you do like the regrouping and all that stuff. All right, what are your two potential answers for width? 12 and 2. So this is weird because they both end up being positive. So it's like, which one do you knock out of the way? Well, let's just remember, if we know the width, we will know our length. So if the width was 12 and you plug it into this formula to get your length, you get 14 minus 12 is 2. And so the width would be the wider, the length would be the shorter. And that's usually the opposite, right? So if you plug 2 in, you'd have 14 minus 2 is 12. So the width will actually be 2. And honestly, guys, on this one, I wouldn't count you off either way. So if you just pick one and find the other, that's fine. So if you say it's 12, that's fine. But then the length, you got to plug it in, right? 14 minus W, or 14 minus 2, is 12 meters. On my math lab, they usually say just find the dimensions, so you could put 2 meters, comma 12 meters, and you're not really specifying which one's which, so it's not the end of the world. But like I said, that one has a lot going on where most likely it wouldn't be on a quiz. I mean, and it's not very practical. How often do you have a rectangle where you know the perimeter and width, but for some, or perimeter and area, but for some reason you don't know the size? It's not very practical.